Hey YouTube, we have League turnover today. It is Great League and Master League Premier. So Master League Premier is level 50, no legendary. So I'm going to go over rankings and top teams here. If you just want to play Great League, if you don't have level 50 Pokemon, this is the week that I'm actually doing try-hard teams. So before I was doing like, let's test Pokemon that used to be good, that aren't good, like Nidoqueen and Azumarill and stuff like that. Now I need to grind ELO. There's like 5 weeks left in the season. So last couple days and a couple upcoming this week, we'll have some good grinding ELO teams. So hit that subscribe button if you're new so you don't miss those. Otherwise, Master League Premier is on, and I'm going to jump up the rankings here. So for those of you who are new to this channel, what I do is I quickly go over the top 20 rankings, why they're ranked the way they are, and then I go over teams. It's very easy for Master League this time around because Master League Premier has been on multiple times. I have a few teams that I've tried and tested and it's super good, and I've a couple other teams from a couple other content creators that I also think are very, very strong. So very easy to just kind of go over these top teams here. For this rankings, I'm not going to go over too long because the rankings haven't changed much. What I'm going to do is there's a couple that I want to highlight here that I expect you to see more of, and I'll tell you why in a second. So let's just start with Dragonite. Dragonite's everywhere. Dragonite's like one of the top in open, and in here is super, super strong. Even in bad matchups like your Mamoswine and Excadrill, your bad matchups there, you could still hit super effective for superpower. So that's why it's so strong. It's going to just outpace all the other dragons, going to do great against pretty much everything else in here, except for Florges, and I'm going to go over Florges right now. I expect to see a huge uptick in Florges because, so Florges and Excadrill, there's two things that are going to bump, and it's going to try to change it. So Florges, there was a few more Floo babies in an event, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then this past event allowed you to evolve to get 2 guaranteed XL candies. So what I think a lot of people did is had a lot of these Pokemon caught and evolved a lot to get XLs. So I expect this to be a great answer because if you're running Dragon Breath, Gyarados, or Dragonite, and there's Garchomp in there, you're just super, super strong. The problem is for it, Excadrill is out right now. Drillburs are everywhere. I don't have the Hundo yet, but I now have the XLs required to get there. So I think you're going to see a huge uptick in Florges, and I also think you're going to see a huge uptick in Excadrill to do that. And because of that, Gyarados at number 4 and 7 has Dragon Breath. I think you are going to see a huge uptick in Gyarados with Waterfall, because Waterfall will cover both of those, right? Because with the Dragon Breath, it's kind of an iffy situation with Excadrill, and it's a terrible matchup for Florges. But Waterfall is a winning matchup against Excadrill and like a neutral against Florges. So you're gonna see my top team, which I used multiple times, which is super, 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 super strong. Like I've gotten like 600 plus ELO in like 3 seasons with the team. It's so good. I have to modify it, I think, because of how Florges, Excadrill, Gyarados are gonna like play with each other. So we'll go over that in a second. Snorlax is just your best safe swap in this league. There are like very, very, very few counters. I got 1 counter user coming in here on my last team, but very, very few counter users. Like the super effectiveness of Metagross, super power can hit most things. It's just such a safe swap. It's bulky. Shadow version is ranked much, much higher than the non-shadow, just because you can like. The problem with the non-shadow is I don't need to respect the body slams as much. With the shadow, like you're tanky, but those body slams do it up real quick with the licks. So that's why the shadow is ranked higher. Gyarados, like I said, Gyarados Dragon Breath, you could still use Gyarados with Dragon Breath. I'm just anticipating that the meta is going to change. So Gyarados Dragon Breath is still one of the best Pokemon in this meta. And even in bad matchups, like you beat Metagross with the crunches, you beat Excadrill is close with the Dragon Breath, but the Aqua Tail spam is real there. Dragon Breath allows you to stay in against other dragons, Dragonite, Garchomp, and other dragons that come up and just do well against that. So that's why Dragon Breath is recommended. Just stay tuned. Just adjust based on what you're seeing. Garchomp with 2 nukes here, I think, is the right way to go because of the uptick in Florges and Excadrill, right? So Mudshot, Earth Power will be great for Excadrill, just domination there. What I'm worried about is if you go Dragon Tail, you obviously get met with a Florges or Steel, like Excadrill, Metagross. There's so many of them. So I think Mudshot's a better move. Earth Power, Outrage, at least Earth Power, if Florges is everywhere, you could hit it for neutral with Earth Power, and it's a super strong move. The problem is, not on this list, Togekiss just had a community. Now, Aurora Sphere is kind of useless anyways, but you could get like a Florges Togekiss ABB style team, and then Garchomp is kind of useless against Togekiss. Otherwise, it can hit sort of neutral for everything in here with between the Outrage and Earth Power. But just keep that in mind if you see that. Metagross is just your domination answer for Fairy. Does well against Dragonite. Does well against pretty much most things. Does well against super well against Mamoswine. Its hardest answers are Gyarados, which are everywhere, and Excadrill, which are going to be everywhere too. So just keep that in mind. Just have answers for those. Ursaluna, I'm going to use it again because I've got a hundo and I'm building it up right now. Ursaluna is very bait dependent. It's tanky. Tackle's not an amazing move for this meta, especially with all the steel. High horsepower takes a while to get to and is very Thunder Punch bait dependent. Now Thunder Punch is great because Gyarados are everywhere, right? So that's great. High horsepower takes a while to get to. But I think it's okay. I think it has way more play here than it does in the open, but I'm still not sold on it just based on how it felt last time. But maybe with the meta change, it'll be different this time. Mamoswine has been my go-to since season 1 of GBL in the open league because it was a beast then and is a beast now with high horsepower. Again, in neutral matchups, Dragonite, Florges, like Excadrill, everything, like even water, as long as it's not like Waterfall Gyarados, you're great. You're obviously going to lose to Metagross, but if you bait an Avalanche, then you can get high horsepower too. So Mamoswine, definitely a go-to in this league. Excadrill, I've kind of vaguely covered, but like resists the Dragon Breath, it resists the Fairy, it has the Rock Slide for the Flyers, for Gyarados. It's just so well-rounded. I think outside of Snorlax, Excadrill is my go-to save swap in this meta. Goldango, however you pronounce it, is an interesting one. So I have not been doing these coins. Some people do have it for sure. I've seen some people have it. It's interesting. So its moveset is really, really strong in the fact that and that has like Shadow Ball for Metagross and Focus Blast for Excadrill. So it's nice coverage there. Hex is a decent fast move for energy generation. I haven't played against it much, so I don't know how it performs overall, but I think it definitely core breaks a few things in here. So just keep in mind if you're building it. Como-O is on here because it is a dragon as well, but with a close combat. So what's the difference between Dragonite and Como-O? Nothing. I would just go Dragonite with superpower over Como-O. I don't think you need to build up both. But if you don't have a Dragonite for some reason, Como-O's a fine second option. Avalug's just a poor man's Mamoswine, quite honestly. Como-O's a poor man's Dragonite. Avalug's a poor man's Mamoswine. If you have Mamoswine, use that first. If not, Avalug's a good 1B option here. Swampert's interesting because I've used it a few times and it's always disappointed me just because Gyarados and Dragonite are everywhere, right? And when you have Gyarados and Dragonite everywhere, it makes it much, much tougher to run. It's suggesting Sludge just because, like, again, if you go against Gyarados Dragonite, your Earthquake is kind of useless and Hydro Cannon is resisted, so you need a move. That's why it's recommending Sludge Wave. It's just like between those, the problem is like Florges, it'll do great Hydro Cannon spam. Like everything else outside of those, it'll do great against Metagross. Obviously, it'll do great against Excadrill, and the Hydro Cannon spam is very real. You need, if you're gonna run it. Honestly, Swampert plus like a Fairy like Florges and a safe swap like Lickitung or like Snorlax, that is a pretty fair team. I would say I would be comfortable running that. I unfortunately do not have a Florges or Snorlax, so Swampert's kind of a iffy for me. Last two here, Shadow Magnezone. Again, if you're gonna see more Florges and Gyarados, Magnezone is a nice option. Problem is, like, it gets walled by Excadrill, like walled. So you need two answers for Excadrill if you're gonna run it. Hydreigon, Dragon Breath, Brutal Swing, Flash Cannon. Again, I think there's so many other dragons on here, and there's another one that I'm gonna go over in Zionix team that I think is just better for this meta. So I'm not sold on it. Team number 1. So this is my team that I've used for, like I said, 600 plus ELO in 3 seasons. It's just such a beast. Dragon Breath, Gyarados lead. So Dragon Breath just because it was such a neutral, fast move. It spams Octo. Everyone used Gyarados as a safe swap, but I said just use it here as a lead because it's just super strong that way. And then you have Metagross and Dragonite, just 2 strong Pokemon. Like, again, it's very meta, super strong. Metagross with shield advantage just beats everything pretty much in this meta. Being able to land the Earthquake on like Extra Drill and stuff like that, like you're weak to, and Meteor Mash is such a strong hitting move too. And then Dragon Breath, Dragonite for sort of like your main weak, which is, well, like you can land super power against Extra Drill and just stuff like that. Now I think Florges is going to be everywhere. So I'm not saying don't run this team, because you're already sort of weak to Extra Drill in the back and now Florges in the front. If I'm going to run this team, I'm going to run Waterfall Gyarados. The issue with that is fine. I think it's going to be better in the meta. The issue with that is if you see a Dragon Breath Gyarados on the lead, because then you're going to lose the lead. You can't come into Dragonite because you're probably going to have, they're going to have an answer to that probably in the back, and it's not a great matchup to begin with, and you can't come in Metagross. So you just kind of have to stay in that matchup. So I think I'm going to play this team. I think I'm just going to modify it to Waterfall Gyarados and see how that goes, because I expect the meta to shift. If you want to go old school here, I think ABB, this lineup is good. Double Steel, Dragonite Double Steel is a very, very, very common lineup. If you can tell by the different shading in the background, this is even older team. This team has worked since the very, very early stages. Extra Drill safe swap, Dryout to Gyarados, or something that is going to try and hard punish it. But again, Extra Drill as a safe swap is one of the best in this meta. Outside of Lickitung, you will Drill Run and Rock Slide spam like crazy with the Mudshot energy generation. Dragonite punish, Meteor Mash, Metagross roam free in the back, usually with shields up, is going to dominate. So very common team. I expect to see some variation of this team, if not this team, in the meta. So this was, again, an older one. Togekiss on lead with Charm, Waterfall Gyarados as your safe swap, and then Mudshot. I was running Sand Tomb Outrage because I think this was before Earth Power was even a thing, quite honestly. So basically it's a balanced team with Gyarados as your safe swap. I think Togekiss, you're going to see a lot more Florges instead of Togekiss. I think this team is still balanced. I would run Earth Power and Outrage in the back end, because you know your fairies are just going to be weak to Metagross and Extra Drill, and your backline will counter both of those, right? That's why you're running Waterfall Gyarados, and that is why you're running Mudshot and Earth Power Garchomp, because that will just dominate the two weaknesses that your fairies in the front. So even if you don't see Togekiss and you see Florges, I expect some sort of this combo in the back, because these two will cover the hardest answers to Florges in the front. Home Slice Henry. So like this is a typical team you're going to see with Florges. I think Florges to be really strong in this. I think this is a typical team you're going to see because Florges is, again, main weakness is Extra Drill and Metagross, right? So outside of those two, it doesn't really have a lot of bad matchups. So you leave it on the lead. Snorlax as an amazing best safe swap in this meta. Extra Drill is also a great safe swap in this meta, so you can kind of see what's on the lead. If it's an Extra Drill on the lead, how I think this team works out, I didn't actually go through the video, but how this team works out is if it's an Extra Drill lead, I'm safe swapping my Snorlax into it. If it's a Metagross lead, I'm safe swapping my Extra Drill into it. You know, you can actually do Snorlax into Metagross too, but that's how I would play this team out. Both great safe swaps, both will grab shields, most likely. Yeah, just a strong balance team, just covering your main weaknesses there. And Dianic, but I'm blanking on the Haxorus, Metagross, and so Double Steel. So Dragon Double Steel, like variation of Dragonite Double Steel. What I'm thinking with this team is Metagross as your safe swap. You're gonna. So the problem with this team is I think it will depend on. Now that I'm looking at it, Waterfall Gyarados on the lead is gonna be a bit tricky, or even Dragon Breath Gyarados, because you can't really come Magnezone, because then you just, if they have an Extra Drill, you're gonna lose the matchup, and you can't come in with your own come into Metagross, because that's a losing matchup too. So I think the worst part of this team would be is if you see a Gyarados on the lead. If you don't see another Gyarados on the lead, I think this is a very good ABB style team, where you come in like Metagross, you try and pull out an Extra Drill or Gyarados. See, this you may want to use. I know why he's using counter, because counter is going to be great against your Metagross, where you can do neutral counter plus Night Slash, super effective, and Extra Drill is just a great answer to it. So that's why he's using it. I would probably tweak this team a bit. Honestly, I don't mind the Dragon Lead. But I'd probably modify Magnezone just for like an extra drill, just to make it safer. Again, you're using Magnezone as one of the best answers to fairies, but also an incredible answer to Gyarados, which extra drill is not a great answer to Gyarados, but that is how I modify the team. Anyways, just going back to the rankings, as you kind of saw, these 20 Pokemon, not even 20, there's only like 14 if you take away the double counting, probably less. You will only see 15 Pokemon in this meta. It's not one that you can get unique and go down to like, there may be some odd, like I've used, you can use like Shamachamp, or I've used Conkeldurr as a counter user. Yeah, but for the most part, you're not going to see many Pokemon outside like the top 25. It's just like, this is the meta, get used to it and build a team around it, right? So if I'm going to use a modified version of my team. If I had every single Pokemon XL'd and like built, I would use this one. Quite honestly, I think this is overall the safest. I think Florges is going to be a beast in this, and I think Snorlax is an extra with super strong safe swaps to deal with anything you see in the mid game. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I'll do a few Match League teams because I think some people will play that, and then I will do, like I said, I've already got a bunch of Great League strong teams coming for trying to push to Legend. So check those out. Appreciate the thumbs up and comments. Let me know if there's any teams that you are playing in Match League, or if you're going to play Great League, let me know what teams you're running. And that's it. Appreciate the thumbs up and comments. I'll see you guys in the next one.